right, let me just. Cool. So I can see a couple of people on the video, lovely faces. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, wherever you're calling from. If I can just get you to type where you're joining us from today, that would be great. In the chat message, let's do that loud as fast as possible while we are waiting for other people to join. Of course, this is Pete from Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Where are you joining us from today? Okay, Patrick, that's one of our regulars and very good support. Connecticut in the US. Nice to have you around today, bro. Thank you so much. Of course, got myself joining from early morning from Melbourne, Australia. Where are you joining us from? Oh, Sandeep from New Zealand. From London, I mean. From London, Sandeep from London. Monica from New Zealand. Thank you so much. Oh, Prince Aduremi, that's from Lagos, Nigeria. That's homeland. Thank you for joining. You can just let me know where you're joining from. That will be awesome. That will be awesome. Okay. Okay, Emmanuel from the US. Nice to have you here. Very, very nice to have you here. Okay, Dallas Kati. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us here. All right, Olayinka from Lagos. Good evening to you. Good evening to you. Okay, I guess we have a quorum. I guess we can start. I know a couple of people are trying to log in now, but of course they definitely will be joining us because of time. I want us to live here right on the hour. We are just going to start. Cool. So can I confirm if you can see my screen? You can still see my screen. All right, great. Let's go for it. Now, I'll quickly do a round of introduction, and then we can start today's proceeding. Every month, I mean, we try to come together, and we as a team, or okay, no worries, Monica. I can see your chat. All right, cool. So let's start with why. The African Discipline Agile Meetup is the only discipline Agile meetup in Africa, and is a group that is committed to promoting the real value of lean and agile practices. It is also based on the freedom that Discipline Agile promises. So we don't only talk about Discipline Agile, we talk about all things Agile. So we are looking at individuals and organizations in Africa and across the world that are interested in developing their agile practices and also lean practices. You are all welcome to attend. We tend to transfer knowledge in Scrum, in Lean, in Kanban, in Lean Startup, Lean Agile life cycles, and so many other relevant practices. Of course, it includes disciplined Agile. So this is brought to you by Pete Lauren Consulting. That's the organization that I work for. And we show up every month, at least to talk about practical Agile or practical agility. Just before I introduce our speaker for today, I just really want to mention that questions are welcomed. If you have any questions, there are 2 ways we'll be answering your questions today. If you type that into the chat, I will keep monitoring the chat, which also means that I can let our speaker know if there is a chance between or within the presentation. There will be Q&A session about 5 minutes at the end of the presentation. So that's the preferred time to ask a question. But if there is any burning question, I can definitely bring that up. So just to let you know. Now, what I'm going to do now is quickly do a quick introduction of our speaker today, Orod. Orod is someone I really respect so much. We have met in a lot of, conferences, meetups, and, Agile engagement here in Melbourne, Australia. Orod is an Agile coach. He's a public speaker. He's also an accredited Kanban trainer. He's a skilled as Agile Consultant, which is an SPC, Scrum Master, of course. I love this part of him. He's a food vlogger, right? I love food as well. So he's been bringing a lot of value into the Agile world. And since 2010, Agile has trained and helped so many organizations in various industries to design their. All right, I think I lost connection. So I'm just going to quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, Zoom just crashed. So I'm just going to quickly go through that again. Apologies for that. Okay, so I was talking about Orod before I lost connection. So I said since 2010, Orod has trained and helped many organizations in various industries to design sustainable Kanban system and also to support them to gradually improve their business agility. And it does this by delivering the right work at the right time. And this is it does that without changing job titles and organizational structure. So let's hear from Orod today. And I think it's a good thing to have an accredited Kanban trainer to talk to us about, challenges with Scrum and to see whether Kanban can be an alternative. So without further ado, I think I'll bring Orod on just to take us further. Orod, can you please say if you can share your screen?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Pete. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please. It's coming up.
Awesome. All right. Good morning and evening and afternoon, everyone. Because I've noticed that we have participants from all over the world. As Pete said, I'm Orod. I'm an Agile coach and accredited Kanban trainer. However, I exposed to Agile world through Scrum, almost 2008, 2009. And I had very good experience with Scrum, and I had not very successful experience with Scrum as well, as a Scrum Master and Agile coach. And in last few years, I actively work with Kanban and actively run certified Kanban courses from Kanban University. So today, what I'm going to do is that we start with what agility means. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we have the same definition of agility and why we want to achieve agility, what it is, how to increase it, that kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk about Scrum and what Scrum needs to be successful and effective. We talk about Scrum change management approach, and also we're going to talk about Scrum challenges. And by the way, I'm not here today to say Scrum, it's a bad framework or it doesn't work or anything like that. As I said, I had really good experience with Scrum. Probably if, without Scrum, I probably even wasn't here today. But as you all know, in the last 25 years that Scrum been around, a lot of organization and team try to adapt Scrum. And some of them had really good experience and some of them not very good and successful experience because there are some challenges that we're going to talk about it. And then we start talking about Kanban, what it is, what problem Kanban try to solve and how it try to solve it. And also we're going to talk about Kanban change management. And as Pete said, please put your comment in the chat, and if there is any comment, any question, Pete, please let me know. I'm happy to even answer them as we go. All right. So, agility. You know, when I ask agility, what agility means from client or people normally give me different answers. So agility has different definitions from different person to person. And I think it's very important to define agility in the first place to make sure we all have the same understanding about the goal of what we're doing, because what we, at least I, try to do as an agile or agility coach is to increase agility in team and organization. And that's something we need in 21st century. A lot of people say we need to respond to changes. A lot of people say we need to embrace Agile manifesto, Agile values, principles, those kind of things. And one of the values of Agile manifesto is respond to change. But the thing is, responding to change without achieving the goal. So for example, we want to deliver something to the customer. Before we deliver it and give it to the customer, if we change direction and work on something else, then it's not respond, it's react. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in these days. So we are in the middle of something, someone come and say, all right, guys, stop working on this one, work on something else. And we are agile, we need to do it. That's react. So to be able to achieve agility, we need to deliver the value, something valuable to the customer when the customer expects it. When we've done it, then we can change direction. But the thing is, from when we start working on something until it's done and the customer demands fulfilled, it takes a time. The first thing we need to do is to be able to be predictable. And this is very difficult in knowledge work. If you ask a carpenter, for example, how long it's going to take to make this table, probably it gives you, say, 2 days and give it to you in 2 days, or maybe a little bit more, maybe less, but it's quite accurate. But when you ask knowledge worker, you know, in software development, for example, when you ask, okay, when you give this feature to the client, different person give you different time and they all wrong. So the first things we need to do is to be able to be predictable, which means we know when we start the works to give it to the customer, when customer expect it. Sometimes customer expect to get something in next 2 weeks. If we give them 3 weeks later, it has no value. If we give them 1 day before, might not have value either. So it's very important to start to be able to be predictable. And that basically means agility, to deliver what customer expect, when customer expect. And that takes time. We call it lead time. And probably today we're going to talk about lead time a little bit later. There are lots of agile framework, and they have lots of practices and principles to help us to achieve agility, be able to be predictable. So when we say customer, we give this one to you next 2 weeks, we give it to you, including Scrum, Safe, Less, and a lot of other framework. And today we want to focus on Scrum, which is the most common and probably the most well-known Agile framework. All right, so I'm not sure how much you guys familiar with Scrum in rugby. I've seen there are a few people from New Zealand, so I believe they know Scrum. So Scrum, in the terminology of Scrum, I think it's very important we understand where the terminology comes from before we talk about the framework. So Scrum in rugby basically means, you know, everyone in rugby team, they huddle and they try to walk together as one unit together. So if someone slips, other people still keep pushing and help. It's not like, oh, you slip, you fall down, all right, we don't help you. So that's where the Scrum comes from. And the Scrum framework, same thing. I always tell people, imagine you have one person with 2-3 heads and 6 hands and superhuman. So we work together as one unit. We are one team. We are one person. At the end of the day, everyone in the team achieve the goal and we are successful, or we all fail together. The most important concept in Scrum is Scrum team, which is a small team, cross-functional, and hopefully self-organized or self-managed, as they recently changed it in the Scrum Guide. It has some role, again, in new Scrum Guide, they change it to responsibilities. So we need someone who has mastery in Scrum. So we need someone who knows the Scrum framework, all the practices, has some coaching skills, all those kind of stuff. We need someone who is empowered by the business and customers, so can make the decision or at which work has the highest priority, how it needs to be done, stuff like that. We call it product owner. And we have the developers. They basically build the product and test it and deploy it and give it to the customer. Scrum also has some artifacts and also some practices and ceremonies. And if we follow all those ceremonies and the practices, Scrum believes that we can achieve agility. And Scrum try to achieve agility by minimizing the size of the team and slicing the size of the work, and also fixing the time box, which is called sprint, normally 2 weeks. So if the job is too big, bigger than 2 weeks, slice it until it fits into 2 weeks sprint. It can be between 1 to 4, but normally 2 weeks. And that helps us to be predictable. So team pull 10 works and say, okay, in next 2 weeks, we give these 10 works to the customer. And if they do it, that means we have a high-performing team and we have a very successful Scrum. But because Scrum is a framework, as Ken Schwaber, the co-founder of Scrum Framework, said, Scrum needs a context. It works under some condition. And our job is to build that context. So I always use this example. I say, imagine you have, you want to screw, for example, something on the wall. You go to the tool shop, you want to buy a screwdriver, and then you see that an electronic screwdriver is on sale. And then you were like, all right, I'm going to buy these tools. It's 10 times more expensive than manual screwdriver, but it's really cool. And I also seen that, one of my neighbor has, why not myself? So you buy the electronic one. You come home and you notice that, you don't have electricity at home. So Scrum is a tool. It's like that electronic screwdriver. If you don't have the electricity, that tools doesn't help you that much. By buying the tools, it doesn't mean that you can achieve your goal. It adds lots of cost to you, but it doesn't really help you. Based on my experience, these are on the right. These are the contexts that when I had a successful Scrum. And when I haven't had, I didn't have a good experience with Scrum. It doesn't mean that these are the only context and condition, but based on my experience, these are the most important ones. And of course, the most important is to have a Scrum team, the cross-functional team. So one of the conditions I had with Scrum, and I had a successful experience was we had a T-shaped team. So everyone in the team could help and work almost on everything. That's one of the successful. If you don't have this one, at least make sure to have all the skills in your team. Sometimes you have developers, you have BA, you have tester, but you don't have anyone to deploy the code. So the code is ready, but you need to wait for another team to deploy it, and they have other priority. So the work is just wait. Basically, automate everything it's possible. So don't wait for anything that can be automated. To be able to do that, you need to have good amount of test automation. So minimize the manual work as much as possible. Again, minimize dependency with external, it can be external team within the organization or external team and external organization, but minimize this one. Again, when you have dependency, when you need to wait, that cause lots of problem and interaction in Scrum, and it doesn't help you or stop you to achieve your goal. You need to be able to slice the work to fit in 2 weeks sprint, no unplanned work, because if you have unplanned work, it breaks your commitment and your plan. And you need to have a high level of trust and communication between these people who works together. All right, so because the Scrum knows that Scrum needs a context, and our job as a Scrum Master or coach is to create that context that Scrum needs. When we decide to adapt to Scrum, Scrum has a revolutionary change management, because Scrum comes and says, all right, guys, you need to stop working how you used to work. You need to change from tomorrow or from next 2 weeks. We send people to training. So we train people to become Scrum Master and Product Owner. We change people's title. All right, you're not project manager anymore, you are a Scrum Master. You're not a BA anymore, you're a Product Owner, that kind of things. And you need to work differently. So now we time box everything, and we introduce quite a lot of different ceremonies and meetings to people, and they have to follow it. So they need to go to daily stand-up, they need to do retrospective, they need to do a lot of other stuff. So basically, we Scrum break everything you do and try to create everything from scratch. And that's not easy, because change is time consuming and people resist to these kind of changes. And also some people, especially middle manager, Scrum come and say, all right, because we have a self-organized team, so you not have the authority anymore to tell people what to do, when to do, those kind of things. This team start deciding themselves. And again, middle manager, practice manager start resistance. And ideally, we plan, and then we focus and commit to the plan and start sprinting until the end of the sprint, and hopefully we achieve our goal. But the reality is, this is not really it's not really sprint. There are lots of barriers on the way. As I said, you have unplanned work pushed to the sprint. You find out that, the scope was something is missing. You realize that we don't have, we can't deploy the code, for example. We need to wait for something, another team. So there are lots of barriers on the way that stop you to finish what you plan at the end of the sprint. And these are some of the challenges, and I'm sure you can even add more to these challenges. But the biggest challenge you have with Scrum is that people resist to these kind of changes, because we are not just asking people to work differently. We are targeting people identity. So imagine you have a tester who works in that organization for 20 years. You have a developer manager who work in this organization for 30 years, 20 years. You have project manager with 20 years experience, 30 years, 40 years experience. And they say, okay, from tomorrow, you're not a project manager anymore. Whatever you learn and achieve in last 20, 30, 40 years, just throw it to the bin. And now you are a Scrum Master, you are a servant leader, you have no authority, but you need to influence on people and you need to facilitate meetings and do this and do that. You're not estimating the work anymore. You need to use story points and relative estimation and all those kind of stuff. So you're targeting people identity and people don't like it. People not ready. They're not comfortable to do it. And I even heard from senior management that if anyone resists, we kick them out and we hire someone with the right mindset. And again, they don't really realize that firing people, you not just fire or kick out one person. You kick out the knowledge of this person. We're talking about knowledge work, and this knowledge is very valuable. Someone who worked in this large organization for 20 years, he or she has 20 years experience. By replacing this person, you basically lose all the knowledge. And you need to train another person for another 10 years to have the same knowledge. There are lots of other challenges. People still have, some confusion about relative estimation, what story point means, how to slice the work in large organization when you work on legacy product and applications. It just doesn't make sense to really slice the work. Sometimes slicing the work, it just causes more rework. There is no continuous integration, continuous delivery. There is no deployment, for example, within the team. There are lots of things happen. One of the biggest one is at the end of sprint, something is done, but it's actually not in production. So again, how to track these kind of work? Do you want to do it when you want to deploy? Do you want to go through another regression? All those kind of things will happen, and it's very difficult to manage in Scrum. So that was just very quick overview of Scrum. But let's see what Kanban is. Kanban, when I ask people, okay, what Kanban is, most people come and say, okay, Kanban is a Kanban board. But Kanban, at its core, Kanban basically is a way to manage knowledge work. It has, sorry?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Kanban is a way to manage knowledge work. It has some practices and some principles that help us to manage the work better. One of the practices is WIP limit that you probably heard, but there are other practices as well, and some principles. Kanban has one very critical tool, Kanban board, which is very common and used by Scrum as well. And the goal is to balance between demand and capability. And demand is what customer wants and come to the system. And capability is how much we can deliver to the customer. So we want to balance between what comes to the system and what leaves the system. And we want to balance between these two by visualizing the work and workflow, identify the constraint in the system, what are the bottlenecks, try to optimize the system. So how Kanban, because at the beginning we talked about agility and I said like our goal is to achieve agility. And I talk about how Scrum try to achieve agility by minimizing the size of the team and time boxing and slicing and stuff like that. Kanban, on the other hand, has different approach. So what Kanban try to do is, it says, all right, Agility was to deliver the right work to the right customer at the right time when customer expected. So first thing, we need to visualize how this work flow through the system. And that's what we call it workflow. So workflow in Kanban is critical because when we design our workflow, when we know how the work, it goes through the system until it's done. And each stage of the workflow, we learn a little bit more about this knowledge work from the work, right? Until we give it to the customer and customer say, yeah, thank you very much. You fulfilled my demand and I'm happy now. The second step is to calculate how long the work stay in each stages. And then we identify, all right, these are our bottleneck. These are the waiting time. So from when we start until it's done, as I said, it takes time. We call it lead time. And then, when you look at your workflow, normally your lead time has two types of work. One is the work that someone is actually doing the work. So someone is coding, someone is actually testing, right? And sometimes the work is just waiting. So we have process time, so someone is actually working, or value adding time, or we have waiting time or non-value adding time. So all these two times together make our total lead time. So when we design our workflow, when we calculate how long and track how long the work stay in each stages, then we focus on the waiting time or non-value adding and see why the work was waiting. Is this because we have a big, long queue? All right, that means our constraint become a bottleneck in the system. And now we want to try to reduce the size of this queue by adding it, for example, WIP limit. So very quickly, Kanban is a pull system and it focuses on the entire flow of the work. So for example, in here, in this very simple workflow, we have development, we have ready for test, and we have testing. So we have WIP limit 1 in here and 3 here. This developer finished the work, right? And rather than he push it to the next column and say, okay, I'm done, he needs to wait because the ready reached the limit until this tester finish the work, and then tester pull the work from the previous stage. Now we have this slot empty. So now this developer can move the work to the next stage. And now developer has capacity to pull the next work. So this helps us to reduce the size of the queue and optimize the flow. Because when we design our workflow, when we calculate our lead time, the next step is to reduce this lead time. If we can reduce the lead time, that means we can increase our agility. And we can reduce the lead time by optimizing the flow, identify where the wastes are and try to remove them. Where are the bottlenecks and queue, try to remove them. And that's Kanban approach to increase agility. This probably looks familiar. You can see behind me. So that's my personal Kanban, which I use for my day-to-day work. And there are different swim lane, different WIP limit, and different color for different type of work. But Kanban, as its core, it's a change management approach. But unlike Scrum that has a revolutionary approach, Kanban has an evolutionary approach. So Kanban try to introduce a solution for the problem that fit for this problem. So we find out, okay, what is the problem? And then we collectively agree, okay, this is the biggest problem we have, all right, how we want to resolve this problem. And then we grow and evolve and improve gradually over time. So there is no final solution in Kanban. unlike Scrum that says, okay, this is the solution. You need to change all the context for this solution. In Kanban, we design a solution for the problem rather than change the problem to fit into the solution. I hope that makes sense. In Kanban, we don't introduce new roles. That's one of the principles of Kanban. So we respect people and their job title and how they work and what they do. We don't manage worker. We just manage the work, and we leave and we let worker to organize around the work and see what is the best approach for what they do, because we believe that those who do the work, they are the best people, can make decision about how they work, how to do their work better. And I also quickly talk about pool system, but if anyone has any question about pool, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about pool system at the end. All right, so Kanban, as I said, we design a solution that fit for the purpose. We design a solution based on the maturity of the team and organization. So different organization, different team have different maturity. Sometimes you go to an organization and you realize that, okay, it's absolutely chaos, right? There is no process. No one knows who is working on what. No one want to even talk about what I'm working on, what, and all those kind of stuff, right? The only thing we know is that everyone's always busy. That's the only thing we know. There is no predictability, nothing. Okay, so this is maturity level 0 in Kanban. If you are in this kind of situation, then you can design a Kanban system for this maturity level. So when you are in this level, we design an individual Kanban, something that I have for myself. So one person individually, you don't want to show it to anyone, that's fine. But visualize your work. This is the first step, just for yourself, just to see when you say, I'm busy, just to show yourself how many work you try to do every day. And then people, when they visualize their work, no whip limit or anything, right? They just put the work and very simple workflow, maybe 3 steps. Okay, these are my backlog, this is what I'm working on, and this is done. Okay. The first step is just to help them to see how many work they do. And when they realize that, oh, I'm working on 20 works a day today, and say, yeah, that's why I'm very busy. That's why I'm very frustrated. I do lots of context switch. 20 works a day is too much for me. I can't do it, right? Then when people get comfortable to visualize their work, then they're probably ready to go to maturity level 1. So at that stage, people realize that, okay, we need to have some sort of process. They realize the dependency between individuals, but still there is no concept of one team. So people see themselves as individual. They still focus on their individual goal, but they realize that there is a dependency between individuals. So when I finish my work, it can't be done because someone else needs to start working and continue working and stuff like that. So that will be maturity level 1, which is an aggregation of individual Kanban work. So individual, we put them together. And that helps us to see everything in one place, basically. When people get comfortable with this approach, the process, it's become part of the day-to-day life, and they're comfortable with the process, they're comfortable with visualizing, they see value to attend the meeting and talk about the dependency that I'm blocked by you, can you help me, that kind of stuff. Then maturity level 2. So at this stage, we have the concept of team. So people see themselves as one team. But in maturity level 0 and 1, we still have individual heroics. So some work only goes to this developer because this developer is the expert on this kind of work, right? In maturity level 2, we have the concept of team, everyone happy to work, but we have management heroic. So managers or leaders directly still impact on the team. So if you pull out the managers or the leaders, people don't really know how to do and how to work, and they still ask questions. All right, what about this? What about that? Okay. But in maturity level 2, we have the concept of team, and we can visualize the work in team level. Then we have maturity level 3. At this stage, we have the concept of agility. So we know when we start, when we deliver, we have a happy customer. So we can constantly deliver and commit to our promises. And maturity level 4, it's basically we have the entire value stream Kanban. So we have everything end to end for the entire organization. The thing is, most organizations, at least based on my experience when I start working with them, they are in maturity level 1. Scrum pushed them to maturity level 3, but because they are not ready, so they go back to either maturity level 1 or they stuck in maturity level 2 in the best case scenario. And when you make a change, I don't know if you heard about this J curve, but when you make a change, normally there is a safety net. So senior management, executive, they expect that, you know, this change cost us a little bit, right? But we tolerate it under, for example, this level. If it has the cost more than this, then we don't accept it anymore. So 6 months, we accept that people get confused and try to, you know, get their head around how to work, how Scrum works, how SAFe works, this kind of thing. But 6 months, 1 year after that, people need to start performing. If not, then we're back to how we used to work. Because I always believe, and that's always said, you know, people already make this pen. We want to help them to make this pen better. We can define what better is, right? But if we can't help them to make this better, then what's the point of Agile or Kanban or, I don't know, project management and all those kind of things, okay? So when you go through revolutionary change management, you have a very big J curve. So at the beginning, people are a little bit excited, maybe confused. They reach here, so either it goes up or not. But the thing is, a lot of teams failed here, and management, they lost their patience and they say, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to continue with SAFe. We're not going to continue with Scrum. We spend so much time. Don't worry about it. Forget about it. I'm sick of it. In Kanban and in evolutionary approach, we want to have, rather than one big J curve, we want to have a lot of small J curve. So we want to introduce change step by step based on what they need and based on what their maturity level is. And that helps to it helps to introduce the change slowly and people accept it easier. And it helps you to have a more successful transformation and adaptation. If the goal is agility, then helps you to achieve agility and improve the agility. So I'm not going to talk about this one. I think I covered most of it. So the biggest change, biggest difference between Kanban and Scrum is their change management approach. Kanban focus on the entire flow and optimizing the flow. Scrum focus on time boxes, and Kanban is a pull system. Scrum is also pull system, but we pull a batch at the beginning of sprint and then stop pulling until end of sprint and then pull another batch. Scrum doesn't really focus on the entire flow. So normally focus on one team, but it's very difficult to visualize the dependency and optimize the entire flow. So maybe you can optimize one team, but not the entire value stream. And Scrum has a constant whip. So it doesn't really have the whip, But normally, when you look at the high-performing team, you can see that every sprint, for example, they deliver around 10 works. And this 10, we call it constant because it's fixed from the entire sprint. Otherwise, you can use all Kanban practices and principle in Scrum team. In fact, Kanban principles many years ago helped me myself to become a better Scrum Master. And at that time, I didn't even really know about Kanban. I just had a manager, which probably Pete know him. And he told me a few simple things, right? And I was like, oh my God, why I never thought about this kind of thing. And years later, I've realized that those things he told me was Kanban principles. There are multiple Kanban courses that we have in Kanban University. So this one, the first one, Team Kanban Practitioner, that's specifically designed for people who work for one team, including Scrum Masters. And because Scrum Master, you know, as I said, there are lots of things Kanban can help them. And already Scrum borrowed some of the practices like Kanban board. The Scrum by itself doesn't have a Kanban board, right? But it's borrowed from Kanban. And at the moment, I don't think anyone can even imagine Scrum without Kanban board. So if you are interested to learn more about Kanban, so there are multiple courses. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss. But the Team Kanban Practitioner, it's specifically designed for Scrum Masters and also help you to take, I forgot the Scrum Org Kanban exam, PSK, I think. Professional Scrum with Kanban, yeah, PSK. So that also help you to take the exam, and you can take this course and then take the exam if you're interested. But after this course, you get the badge and certificate anyway. And if you work with Kanban, if you design some Kanban board and some workflow, if you're familiar, then probably you can have a look at Kanban Management Professional, which has 2 courses. And as I said, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk about Kanban or anyone if it has any question even after this course, please feel free to reach out and let's have a chat. I'm sure there are a lot into Kanban. I personally learn a lot from Kanban, and I'm sure you also will learn a lot from Kanban if you're interested. All right, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Pete for organizing this one. Over to you, and if any question, I'm happy to take them.
All right, thank you so much. That was really short, sweet, and straight to the point, plus a lot of value as well. Thank you so much. First thing first, please, if you can scan the code on the screen, you'll be able to, you know, connect with Orod. I've connected with him for a long time now, and of course, I need not tell you that we communicate a lot. So please, the beginning of really getting into the world of what Kanban can offer starts with a simple connection. Please connect with Orod. So again, I want to say thank you to you, Orod, for sharing your wealth of knowledge. There are maybe a few questions that are in the chat that I'm just going to really read out so that we can deal with that in the next 5 minutes or so. Femi wants to know the difference between delivery lead time and cycle time. So his question is, what's the difference between delivery lead time and cycle time?
Yeah. So basically, there is no difference, but some people have different definitions. So some people said lead time is the entire time that it takes from we start the work, we commit to do it until it's done, and cycle time is how long it stays in each stages of the workflow, right? But as Kanban point of view, they're the same thing, right? So you don't need to name them differently, but if you think it has a value to have 2 different names, feel free to call cycle time. It's this time that it takes in each stage. Lead time is everything, end to end.
Great, thank you for that. The maturity level assessment, is there a way we can do that assessment? And then, how has organizations been, how are they been open to the assessment, if there is one? For example, you talked about level 0, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. In order to let an organization, individual know that this is where you belong. Is there an assessment for that?
So yes, you definitely. So first of all, you can read Kanban maturity level with more detail to first of all understand each stages. I'm working on a self-assessment tools. So which when it's ready, I might even share it on LinkedIn. And if you need, please feel free to reach out. Happy to help. But normally you can do this self-assessment with the team or the organization that helps you to understand where they at. But basically focus always on the problem and see what is the problem. Why do we need to do this change? Right? If your team say, okay, people say, no, we already have a Scrum team. So that's good. I actually really like it. This is Scrum team, the self-organized small team. It's good. So then you can introduce the Kanban for this team. But yeah, there is a book, Kanban maturity model, and also I'm working on a self-assessment which I'm going to share with people.
Cool. Which is also another opportunity for you to connect with Orod, so that at least when it drops that self-assessment, so you'll be one of the first to have them. Some call out. I just really want to call out a few people that have been very active on the chat. Sandeep, really enjoyed your knowledge and the nuggets that you shared on the chat. Very, very, very good. Emmanuel, thank you so much for really sharing some of those nuggets. Of course, Patrick, I really, really appreciate your time. Now, I think I've got a hand up, Osborne.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So sorry, I've been having some network issues. So I wasn't in sync with every detail that was actually tutored. Well, I don't know if this session was recorded so that I could have a look at it again the second time. Thank you.
Yes, Osborne. So at the end of this, presentation, let's say later today or tomorrow morning your time, you will have access to the recording, and also the presentation will be shared as well. So no worries about that. And of course,
thank you very much.
Yeah, one last question from Adams. Adams is asking, is capacity planning in Scrum similar to WIP limits in Kanban?
No. That's a good question. I don't know how I can answer it in a minute or two, because it's a complex topic. But capacity allocation, it's different with WIP limit. However, depends how you design your Kanban. You can have a WIP on different work type. So for example, you can say, we have test, we have development. You can have WIP limit on different skills, or you can have capacity on different type of work, for example, bug or features and enhancement, tech debt, those kind of things. But yeah, they're different. And I can't really explain it in a minute. But I'm not sure who asked this question. Please message me on LinkedIn. Maybe we can have a one-to-one and we talk about it with more detail.
All right, cool.
Because I don't want to, just spoil it in a minute.
So, yep, that's Adams. Adams, please connect with Orod and take that conversation further. So that's great. What I'd like to do is just to share a couple of more things for us, and why we close. We have about 4 minutes to the end, and I don't want to hold us at all. 2 things you are going to do for me. First of all, let me share the screen. All right, cool. I'm taking over. That's it. All right, so. All right, cool. Okay, cool. What is coming up? In March, we'll be talking a little bit about, technical stuff. We are going to go a little bit into the architect world, the imperative of architecting the Agile way, and we'll be having Olusegun Sanyolu to discuss more about this. So if you are technically inclined, please don't miss that. Also, if you are not, but of course you have tech guys, architects in your team, you don't want to miss these as well, because that is what makes us really agile. We don't want to drop the ball when it comes to every role or every single knowledge work that is a member of our team. So I look forward to that. Also, you can also connect with me as well. The number is there, and also the email address. You can send me an email, scan the code. You definitely will connect. Most of you are already connected with me on LinkedIn. Please, if you haven't, please just search for the name Peter Motor Show, and then we'll definitely connect. One last thing I would love to do is to take a picture of the attendees today. I know a couple of people have dropped out, but let's just, if you can put up your video so that we can do a snapshot, that would be good. And then we close for the day. If you can just put up the video, I'll take a snapshot, and then we can share in the team to say, yeah, we are happy people. Let's do this. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Maybe you should take off the contact so that it appears on the gallery.
All right, cool. Good idea. Just 1 minute. I'm gonna do that right now.
I don't know if our profile picture shows here. I think that would have been a better option, because we're in Nigeria, where sometimes where we are, there's no electricity. So putting up a video of ourselves may not actually be a tangible.
Your picture is not showing. It's showing just your name.
Oh, so sorry. So sorry about that. I'm in a dark place, so, and there's no electricity in my area. I'm so sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. We know how it is.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute, and then I'll. Okay, I'm just gonna take it now. All good. All right. So everyone, thank you so much for your time. And next month, we will definitely show up again and discuss about architecting. And then from there, we will definitely add more value. If you have any questions before then, do not hesitate to contact me. We have very good members of the team, very senior members of the community, and then we can always answer your question. At the end of the day, we really want to form a big community of Agile enthusiasts so that at least we can go from here and become better, collectively becoming one big family in the Agile way. So please, let's continue to make our community strong. And I'll see you next month. Bye for now. Thank you so much.
Am I seeing you at ACE?
Yes,
Thank
definitely. I'll be coming straight.
Okay, see you there.
See you there.
Nice one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Pete.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for the
Thank you,
session.
Orod. Thank you.